Hello guys, it's kind of late night thing. Um, this will be kind of a follow-up on the Transformer 101 video to answer some questions, and I'll just kind of go down through the comments. Hopefully the blinking, because the refresh rates are different, the frame rates are different between the camera and the screen, is not too annoying. Uh, the first question that was, well, it's not the first question asked, but the first one that's up on the comments here, was asking me if hooking up a variac with an isolation transformer, and they were wondering if it makes a difference if you put the isolation transformer before or after the variac. In a short way and answer, and we'll get into this more in depth when I actually start talking about power transformers, is yes, it does make a difference, and the best way you really should hook up the two is to have the variac fed from the isolation transformer. In other words, the isolation transformer before the variac. There will be reasons, and I'll touch on that later in the series, of why, but put your isolation transformer before the variac. That's the best way to do it. Alright, the second question has to do with when I was talking about the auto transformer, and when I pointed out as an example of such as the variac, and it had to deal with input and output, or primary or secondary, and that's actually my fault. I was more or less not really going so much in the standpoint of purely of what I was showing in the schematic diagram I showed, as more just giving you an example of a auto transformer that you deal with on a regular basis. But in all reality, the variac, it's actually the secondary that is being changed or moved. In other words, you take that diagram and flip it around. So the input actually becomes the output, and the output actually becomes the input. There are circumstances where you do have an auto transformer, and basically the primary that is connected to the line voltage or connected to the plug that hooks in your outlet is actually variable. And I didn't have a chance to really look these up. I'm trying to pull some from memory. There were a few. I think Triplet made one, and what I'm talking about is tube testers. I think Triplet made one model this way. I believe there was a night kit, or it might have been a night that was actually already pre-assembled. You couldn't get it as a kit. I can't remember for sure. I know there was a couple others right off the top of my head, I can't remember, that used auto transformers for their transformer in there. They had several secondary taps for the various different voltages for your filament heaters. They also used the full winding as the B plus for the plate voltage when you're testing the tube. Most of these were just emission testers, although I think there was one that actually did a little more than just emission, where it actually would apply a tap off that was preset tap that came off for the screen voltage on tubes that had screen grids. But on some of them, they actually, instead of having a rheostat that adjusted your line voltage, they actually adjusted it with the primary, and by adjusting the primary input. Now it was set. It could only go so low and only go so high, but they did use them. Some of the manufacturers did use them. So I thought, point that out. But it was really my fault in the regard that I was more interested in just showing a kind of an example. Those transformers that I was showing today were ideal transformers and general sense transformers. They weren't really per se power transformers, audio transformers, or any other type of transformers in particular. They were just a general purpose, just general going over the basics of some of the stuff. Don't mind the movement of the camera. I was having to plug it in. My battery's getting low. Now, to give some other examples of places where auto transformers have been used, some TVs in the vertical output transformer is actually an auto transformer they used. A lot of your flyback transformers can be auto transformers. Some aren't, but a lot of them are. Certain oscillator coils, such as audio oscillators, such as the coils that are used in, say, a signal generator on its audio side to produce the modulation for modulating the signal, we'll use a auto transformer in there. So these are some other examples, but it's a good question. All these are good questions. Let's see, another comment on here which actually wasn't a question per se. It's actually a safety note which we will go over. It's from Tom at Antique Radio and TV. Tom, you always write a book when you write your comments. But yes, I do concur with you. Safety, anybody hasn't read through the comments, read his comment. It is an excellent comment. Safety is a paramount thing that should always be talked about quite often. Not just for the new guys out there who had never heard about it or heard about safety issues dealing with voltage and current and these radios and TVs and stuff, but also for people that's been in this for umpteen years. You really need, we need refresher courses sometimes because we'll get careless. We just kind of forget sometimes and get more in tune to what we're doing, as opposed to being conscientious of safety. So to really press the point forward, he was talking mostly about jury, and jury is extremely important. Especially the hand that you're using to probe for voltages and stuff, you should keep jury free. It's a metal contact that's in good contact with your body. But even more, just as importantly, whenever you're checking any voltages on a radio, generally most of them are to ground. That's how come on my test leads I have alligator clips that are hooked onto them, so I can clip that ground, the black lead or the ground lead down, leaving only needing one hand to probe. Make sure the radio is solid when you're probing, so you don't have to worry about it rocking on you and you take the chance of wanting to take your other hand and put it on the radio. Make sure your hand's a long ways away from anything, as far as possible from any point in that radio or the tip of that probe. Make sure your probes are good. Also, be conscientious of where you're standing, what kind of floor you've got. You know, if you're in a basement with a concrete floor, concrete itself will conduct electricity even in a dry state. But if it's a little damp, just humidity even, it gets even worse. So always be conscientious of where you're standing. It's best to have some sort of rubber sole or leather if the leather is dry. Leather actually is a better insulator than rubber as long as it's dry. Shoes on to kind of protect you there. If you have to probe the radio in somewhere deep inside that you're taking a chance of getting your hand too close, then take a test lead, outer gate, gator clip lead, something like this, and use it to connect on to the point. Shut the radio off, unplug it, connect on where you're going to measure, then connect the other end onto your probe. Then you can plug it back in, turn it back on, and check your voltage. So, you know, safety is paramount, and we all need to always hear about it. So thank you, Tom. Keep up the good work on that. I had a question about the way I showed current, and yes, it does flip. We talked about this a little bit when I was talking about tickler coil oscillators. Remember, the oscillator coil is a transformer. It really is. The tickler coil is the primary. The coil that is connected to the capacitor making up the tank circuits, your secondary. And I talked about them as the primary introduces voltage through magnetic coupling, mutual inductance into the secondary, that it would be out of phase. Yes, the primary and the secondary of any transformer is 180 degree out of phase with each other, including an auto transformer. So, and it has to do with, and I talked about it at the time, the left and right hand rule. We'll go over this again later in this series, but yeah, they are flipped. I think that pretty much answers all the questions. I want to thank you for commenting and including Old 64 Goat. I appreciate your comments and thank you for watching. And I know math can be a problem child for a lot of people. Just bear with me. This series will have quite a bit of math, but I will try to also be really strong on the theory end of it too as I go through this. And I will keep cool, trust me. Especially the heat, and couple that with high humidity, man, it's just, I don't like it. It's makes it hard to breathe and stuff. So anyway, I think I pretty well covered everything. All the rest who had just basically sent a comment in, yeah, thank you for your comments and thank you for watching. But I thought I'd just make a video on talking about and answering some of these questions, and so that, you know, we at least you get your answers and stuff. And a lot of your questions we will go over even more detailed as I move along in this series. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.